I need to tell someone about this. Not because I think it'll help me. Not because I think anyone can do anything about it. I need to tell someone because I'm starting to forget certain details. And the ones I do remember are becoming less sharp around the edges. Like a photograph left in sunlight too long. And the thing that terrifies me most, more than what I saw, more than what happened to me in that place, is the growing suspicion that forgetting is part of it. That forgetting is how it keeps itself hidden. My name is Joel Parrish. I'm 34 years old. I work as a regional claims adjuster for a mid-sized insurance company based in Knoxville, Tennessee. It's not glamorous work, but it keeps me on the road, which I used to enjoy. Long stretches of highway with the windows cracked 2 inches and the smell of pine and warm asphalt mixing in the cab. Podcast queued up 3 deep on my phone. Gas station coffee in styrofoam cups that sweat through the cardboard holder and leave pale rings on the center console. I never bother wiping clean. A certain kind of solitude that doesn't feel lonely when you choose it. I'd roll through small towns I'd never visit twice. Eat at diners where nobody knew my name or cared to learn it. And fall asleep in motel rooms with stiff pillows and the constant low drone of interstate traffic bleeding through thin walls. I used to find comfort in that rhythm. Wake up, drive, assess the damage, write the report, move on. A clean loop, predictable. The kind of life where the biggest surprise on any given Tuesday is a detour sign or a vending machine that's out of order. I'm telling you this so you understand the kind of person I was before March 11th. Ordinary, methodical. Not the kind of man who sees things that aren't there or drives into towns that can't exist. I filed paperwork. I took photographs of water damage and cracked foundations. I believed in documentation, in procedure, in the calm, rational architecture of the mundane world. I need you to hold that version of me in your mind because it's the version I keep trying to get back to, and I'm no longer certain it still exists. On the night of March 11th, I was driving back from an assessment in Beckley, West Virginia. A retired school teacher named Dolores Mackey had suffered water damage from a burst pipe in her basement. I'd spent the day crouching beneath low ceiling joists with a flashlight in one hand and a clipboard in the other, photographing buckled drywall and dark blooms of mold creeping along the baseboards, like ink through wet paper. I wrote descriptions of the damage in the flat clinical language the company requires. Sustained moisture intrusion. Compromised structural substrate. Language designed to strip the human element from someone's ruined home and reduce it to categories and dollar amounts. Mrs. Mackey offered me tea twice and a slice of pound cake once. I declined the cake. I accepted the tea because she looked like she needed the company more than I needed to stay on schedule. She told me about her late husband, Walter, who'd built the bookshelves in the living room with his own hands and never once used a level because he said he could feel when a thing was straight. About her garden and the roses along the south fence she'd been nursing for 11 years. About the stray cat sleeping under her porch since November. Normal things, kind things. The sort of conversation that reminds you the world is mostly gentle. Mostly people trying to get through their days without bothering anyone. By the time I finished the paperwork and loaded my car, it was just after 6 in the evening. The sky had turned the color of a deep bruise. That particular shade of purple-gray that settles over Appalachia in early spring like something heavy, pressing down, flattening the last of the light until the ridge lines disappeared into the murk above them. I planned to cut south through the mountains and reach my motel in Marion, Virginia by 9. An easy 3-hour drive on Route 460. A road I'd traveled enough times to navigate from memory. The long curve past Princeton, the climb through the gap, where the trees lean in from both sides and the sky narrows to a strip. The slow descent into Virginia, where the valley opens. I remember pulling out of Mrs. Mackey's driveway and adjusting the mirror and thinking about nothing in particular. That's just the detail that haunts me most about the beginning of that drive. How completely ordinary my thoughts were. I was thinking about the motel bed, and whether the vending machine in the lobby would have Doritos, and whether I should call my mother before 9 or wait until the weekend. The thoughts of a man who has no idea that the road he's on is about to stop being a road. The rain started about 40 minutes in, not gradually. It came down like a wall collapsing. One moment the road was dry, the headlights cutting clean arcs into ordinary darkness, and the next my windshield was a solid sheet of water, with no individual drops, just sheer volume pouring from a sky that had opened without warning. I dropped to 40, switched on my fog lights, leaned forward until my chest nearly touched the wheel. The wipers, on their highest setting, did almost nothing. Just smeared the water back and forth in thick, distorting arcs. The road dissolved. Lane markers bled into the pavement. Mountains on either side became vague, dark shapes, more felt than seen. I gripped the steering wheel hard enough that my fingers went numb. And I remember thinking I'd driven through plenty of storms before, but none of them had ever felt like this. Like the rain wasn't falling from the sky so much as the sky itself had liquefied and was pressing down. My GPS had already lost signal twice. The mountains do that, but the rain was so dense I couldn't read signs until I was past them. And when the GPS died a third time, screen dissolving to pale gray, spin icon, finding nothing. I missed my turn somewhere near Bluefield. That's the last real place I can locate with certainty. I drove another 20 minutes, seeing nothing but wet road and black trees. Headlights caught the rain in 2 white cones that stopped 30 feet ahead, as if the darkness beyond were solid. No other cars. I tried my phone, no service. The radio gave me static on every band, thick and uniform. Not the crackle of a weak signal, but a wall of white noise that sounded almost deliberate, like something was occupying every frequency at once. Then I saw the exit. No sign, no number, no reflective marker, just a ramp curving right between 2 concrete barriers. Stained dark with decades of runoff, streaked with something's reddish that might have been rust or mineral deposits from the mountain above. The concrete was crumbling at the edges. Dead grass pushed through the cracks, stiff and pale in my headlights. I almost didn't take it, but I was tired and lost. And I thought if I could find a gas station or a porch light, I could wait out the storm. That's the logic I used. The ramp descended steeply. The road surface changed. Smooth asphalt to rough pavement to something cracked and weedy. The kind of road that hasn't been maintained in decades. Then a 2-lane road flanked by overgrown ditches where brown water ran fast and carried debris in its current. Beyond the ditches, through the curtain of rain, I saw buildings. A town. It appeared slowly. Shapes first, blocky outlines against a lighter shade of dark. Then rooflines, a steeple, storefronts. Then streetlights. Old sodium vapor lamps on wooden poles, casting amber glow that turned the rain golden. Each drop caught the light so the air seemed to shimmer. The town looked real. That's what I need you to understand. Concrete, brick, painted wood, all solid and present in the way real places are present. A post office with a flagpole, the flag dark and heavy with water. A hardware store with a faded green awning sagging under the rain. A diner with neon in the window, open, buzzing in red and blue, one letter flickering at a different rhythm. Cars angled along the curb. A Ford Ranger, a Buick LeSabre, a Plymouth Voyager, with a cracked taillight. I pulled into the diner's lot and sat with the engine idling, watching rain hit the asphalt. Something bothered me. Like a room where one piece of furniture has moved 2 inches. Everything looks right, but your brain catches on something it can't name. Then I placed it. No sounds besides the rain. No television through a wall. No dog. No hum of a heating unit. No screen door. Just water on surfaces, steady and rhythmic, as if keeping time for something I couldn't see. I got out. The rain was warm. Impossibly warm for mid-March in the mountains, where nights still dropped into the 30s. It soaked through my jacket in seconds and ran down my neck. And I stood there thinking this didn't feel like weather. It felt deliberate. It felt like being studied through a medium that happened to be water. The diner bell jingled when I pushed through, bright and ordinary and almost wrong in all that quiet. Inside, vinyl booths with cracked red cushions, formica counter, chrome stools, worn smooth, a half-empty pie case, fluorescent light, casting a flat green pallor and buzzing just below the threshold of conscious hearing. The smell of coffee, not fresh but embedded, as if the walls had absorbed decades of it and were slowly breathing it back. Beneath that, the faint ghost of something fried a long time ago, layered into the ceiling tiles and the wood paneling like a memory the building couldn't release. 5 people. A woman behind the counter in a pale blue uniform. A man in a booth reading a newspaper. Coffee untouched beside him. No steam rising. An older couple near the back, hands flat on the table, neither speaking. A younger man at the counter, mid-20s, sandy hair, denim jacket, eating eggs in precise squares. They all looked at me at the same time. Not a glance. They turned in unison, held the same expression for 3 beats. Not hostile, not afraid, resigned. The look you give someone who's found a room they shouldn't have found. The woman recovered first. Take a seat anywhere, hon coffee, please. And directions if you don't mind. GPS died, trying to get to Marion. She poured without addressing directions. The pot was already in her hand. I sat at the counter. The younger man didn't look up. Heck of a rain. It always rains here. She set the mug down, nearly black. Creams on the counter. The man in the booth folded his newspaper. I read the masthead, the Vellum Creek Register. Date, March 11th. The year, blank. Not smudged or misprinted. An empty gap, clean and deliberate, as if the template had a field that simply no longer received data. The coffee was good, strong, slightly bitter, with a depth that came from real beans and care. I wrapped both hands around the mug and began to feel something like normal. Rain was rain. A town was a town. Down the hall to the restroom, I passed photographs in cheap frames, black and white shots of the town. At one near the restroom door, I stopped. It showed the diner from across the street. Cars from the 1950s parked outside, chrome and tail fins. But the woman behind the counter wore the same pale blue uniform. Her face, her posture, the angle of her head as she leaned toward a customer with the pot extended, identical to the woman who'd just poured my coffee. Not similar. Not a family resemblance across generations. The same woman, frozen in silver halide 60 or 70 years ago, wearing the same expression she'd worn 30 seconds ago when she set the mug in front of me. I stood there until the fluorescent buzzed through its cycle and clicked. In the restroom, I splashed water on my face, gripped the porcelain sink, told myself it was her grandmother. Diners pass things down. Faces repeat across generations. It didn't have to mean anything. When I came back, the younger man, Curtis, was at the door. He stepped close. You should leave before the rain stops. Flat and quiet. Drive out the way you came. Don't go further in. Don't be here when it's dry. He left. The bell jingled and the dark took him. Through the window, I watched him walk into the rain without hurrying, turn the corner past the hardware store, and disappear completely. Not into shadow, but into the dark itself, as if the darkness had substance, and he'd stepped through it like a door. The woman refilled my mug. "Don't mind, Curtis." I finished, left money she waved away, and walked to the door. The older man in the back booth whispered, and it carried across the room with impossible clarity, each word arriving at my ear as though spoken from inches away. "Keep your headlights on, and if you see someone walking along the road, do not stop for them." His hands were trembling around the mug. I drove toward the ramp. There was no ramp where I'd entered, and the memory was physical, not vague. I could feel the curve in my wrists. The road continued into more town. Church, park, gazebo. I turned around, drove back past the diner. No ramp, no highway, no barriers. I drove a full mile in the direction I'd come from. Flat, wet, empty road. Turned around and followed the main street the other way. Barber shop. Library. School with a chain-link fence and motionless swings. The town never ended. It unfolded without boundary, the steeple visible from every angle, as if every street spiraled inward around it, like the chambers of a nautilus shell. I pulled over beside the school and turned off my headlights. The old man told me not to, but when I panic, I freeze. I go dark. I've always been that way. The darkness was absolute. Not nighttime dark, lightless, pressing against my open eyes with physical weight. The streetlights were gone, not dimmed, erased. Only rain on the roof, and beneath it a silence with density, pressurized like the silence at the bottom of the ocean. In that silence, something noticed me. No sound, no shape. A shift in the quality of the dark, as if something vast had turned its full attention toward the small, frightened animal in the metal box and was studying it with ancient, thorough, unhurried interest. The way something studies a thing it intends to keep. I turned the headlights on. The school was gone. A tall, narrow Victorian stood in its place. Wrap-around porch, dead windows, reflecting my lights as flat squares. The street was narrower. The pavement cracked differently. The town had rearranged itself while I sat in the dark. The rain was barely a drizzle. I drove faster, turning randomly. Every turn gave me houses, storefronts, the park, the steeple always visible. Then a figure on the sidewalk moving in my direction. Slow, steady, head bowed. Do not stop for them. I pressed the gas. The figure turned its head as I passed, and in the sweep of headlights, I saw its face. My face, my stubble, my crooked nose, the scar on my left eyebrow from a bicycle fall at 11. My jacket, my watch. It watched me pass with an expression of pure, unhurried patience. Patient the way geology is patient, the way water is patient when it's wearing through limestone 1 century at a time. 3 blocks later, I pulled over and was sick in the gutter. When I looked up, the diner, again, open sign buzzing. The woman behind the counter, unmoved. I went in, sat down. She poured coffee. "I can't find the highway. I know, hon." I studied her hands, smooth, young. Her face was static, not aged, but fixed, like a face that had stopped changing and simply continued, maintained by something other than biology. The man with the newspaper. Rain's thinning. Maybe an hour. What happens when it stops? The older woman set her mug down with a precise click. Kind eyes, the kindness of pity. When the rain stops, the town sleeps. Whatever is here when it sleeps stays. The man stood. Tall, thin, flannel shirt. Ordinary in a way that made everything worse. "Don't interrupt," he said. "First, the town is real. It exists only during certain rains. Heavy, warm, sudden. The road opened for you. It won't open outward the same way. Second, There's an exit past the mill, a gravel track along the creek. The only road that goes uphill, everything else is flat. Follow it to pavement. When you hit pavement, do not look in your rearview mirror. Third, you turned off your headlights. The thing underneath noticed you. It sent something up. The person with my face, a lure. It wears whatever would make you stop. Yours wore your own face. You're the kind who hesitates for himself. That's dangerous. Hesitation is what it feeds on. What is it? The waitress. We don't name it. Naming makes it more real. How do I get to the mill? Main Street East. School, residential blocks, industrial section. Grain elevator, lumber yard. Then the mill. 20 minutes if you don't stop. If I don't stop, you'll want to. It gives reasons. The older woman, headlights on, windows up, no radio. If someone is standing in the road, standing still, drive through them. They're not solid. You'll feel resistance like heavy air, but there's nothing there. Why are you still here? Long silence. The fluorescent buzzed. The pie case hummed. Then, we were travelers too. The rain comes back. You could try again. The old man shook his head. We waited too long our first night, asking questions instead of running. By the time we understood, we belonged here. The road curves back for us, every time, delivers us to this parking lot like a current returning debris to shore. How long? He looked at his weathered hands. I sold vacuum cleaners. Drove a 1957 Bel Air, turquoise and white. Eisenhower was president. Jailhouse Rock on the radio. My wife's birthday was the following Tuesday. I was going to buy her earrings in Roanoke. He looked about 65. Time is different when it sleeps. We go into a gap, a pause. When the rain wakes us, it feels like a blink. The paper says otherwise. It prints itself, always today's date. Stopped printing the year. We think the town lost count. I stood. I have to go. Yes. At the door, the waitress said my name. I stopped cold because I'd never given it. Joel. Drive fast. Whatever it shows you is not real. The only real things are the road and the rain. Get to the hill. How do you know my name? The town learned it when you sat in the dark. It knows your face, your fears, the sound of your mother's voice, the way your apartment smells in the morning. Every memory is a shape it can wear. I left. The rain was barely mist, luminous in the amber light, each particle suspended and glowing. I started the car, headed east. Hardware store, post office, barber shop. I counted them like heartbeats. Past the school, into the residential section. Mid-century houses with porch lights and window glow. A kitchen lit pale yellow. A television flickering blue behind curtains. A rocking chair on a porch, still swaying gently, as if whoever sat there had stood only when they heard my engine approaching. Through my sealed windows, I caught a ghost of something. Pot roast, garlic, warm bread. The particular olfactory signature of a family dinner in a house where someone has been cooking since 4 in the afternoon. From another house, a child's laugh, brief and clear, pitched at exactly the frequency that makes you ease off the gas and look. In one window, a woman's silhouette paused in the act of drawing a curtain, and for a half second, I saw her turn toward the street, toward my headlights. Before the curtain closed and the window went dark, I kept my foot steady. None of it was real. At the 8th block, a child's red bicycle lay on its side in the road. One wheel spinning, my foot drifted toward the brake. I corrected, swerved. In the mirror, gone. Road empty behind me, as if the bicycle had never been there at all. Which of course it hadn't. 3 blocks later, a golden retriever bounded across the pavement. Tongue out, ears streaming, running with joyful abandon. Casey, my dog. Dead since I was 14. I'd held her at the vet while the sedative took hold. and felt the tremor leave her body and the warmth begin draining from her fur. And I'd pressed my face into her neck and breathed in the smell of her one last time. And here she was, young and golden and alive, bounding through the wet dark of a town that existed only in the rain. I drove past, didn't look back. My jaw clenched tight enough that my molars ached. Stars appeared through breaks in the clouds. Each one tightened the pressure in my chest, because stars meant clearing sky, and clearing sky meant the rain was ending. The houses stopped. Industrial section. Chain link fence around empty concrete. Grain elevator, rusted orange. Lumber yard with green tarps over stacked timber. At the end of a cracked drive, the mill. 3 stories of dark brick, broken windows catching my headlights in jagged fragments. Smokestack black against the clearing sky. Behind it, the creek, swollen and fast and loud. Beside the mill, a gravel track along the creek bed, heading east into thick trees. Going uphill, I turned onto it. Gravel loud under my tires. Headlights opened a tunnel between trees whose branches interlocked overhead. Like the ribs of a cathedral, the road climbed steadily. Creek sound rose and fell with each curve. Closer, farther, closer, like breathing. Single drops sat on the windshield. Wipers squeaked on near-dry glass. I pushed to 35. Back end drifted on corners. In the rear view, darkness, the faint red smear of my taillights on wet stone. Then someone standing in the road. 80 yards. Motionless, centered between the tire tracks. Sharpening with every foot of distance I closed. My mother, green cardigan with mismatched buttons she'd never gotten around to replacing. Hair in a loose bun, that expression. Warm and worried, the face she wore when I was late, when I hadn't called. When she heard something in my voice, I thought I was hiding. She was standing in the road in the rain, in a town that doesn't exist. And she looked more real than the steering wheel in my hands, more real than my own heartbeat. My foot found the brake. The car slowed. Every cell screamed, "Stop. That's your mother. She needs you." I closed my eyes for 1 second. Then I opened them and pressed the accelerator to the floor. I drove through her. No resistance, no sound, no body. A faint ripple in the headlights, like heat shimmer on summer asphalt. Then the road was empty, and I was still climbing, and I was crying so hard the world broke into smeared light and water. Because knowing it isn't real doesn't matter. Your body doesn't forgive you for driving through your mother. Not then. Not ever. Trees thinned. Gravel became pavement. A lane marker flashed, a guardrail, a speed limit sign, the ordinary furniture of a real highway. The rain stopped completely. Through the trees, distant lights, cell towers, a shopping center's glow. The real world humming along as if the last 2 hours had never happened. I did not look in the rearview mirror, not even when I heard the sound. A vast inhalation from behind me, as if the mountain had drawn breath through a throat a mile wide. 5 seconds. Air pressure shifted. My ears popped. The wheel vibrated. Then silence. Clean and final. The silence of something withdrawing from a world it had been pressing against. 30 minutes later, my phone found a signal. The GPS placed me on Route 16, 3 miles north of Marion. I found the motel, checked in. The woman at the desk looked up from a paperback and asked if I was all right. Long drive, I told her. She handed me a keycard. I went to my room and locked the door and chained it and sat on the bed in my wet jacket with my shoes still on. And I did not sleep until the sun came through the curtains and the parking lot filled with the sounds of ordinary people. Engines starting. Luggage wheels on concrete. A child whining about breakfast. And for a few minutes, those sounds felt like a wall between me and whatever I'd left behind in the mountains. A thin wall, but a wall. In the morning, I retraced the route. North on 16 to 460, east toward Bluefield, watching every foot of shoulder. No exit, no barriers, no ramp. I pulled over and walked half a mile each direction along the shoulder, scanning the tree line, unbroken forest, no tire tracks in the gravel, no gap in the guardrail, no indication that any road had ever branched from the highway at that point. The mountainside was continuous, dense with laurel and oak, as if it had been growing, undisturbed, for 100 years. Back in Knoxville, I filed Mrs. Mackey's claim. Attended a meeting about quarterly numbers. Ate a turkey sandwich at my desk while my coworker talked about his daughter's soccer tournament. I nodded at the right moments. I smiled when it seemed called for. I did everything the script of my life required, and all of it felt like a performance, like someone who'd memorized Joel Parrish's lines, but had never inhabited the character, had never understood what any of it was supposed to feel like from the inside. I called my mother Sunday evening. When I heard her voice, I had to sit down on the kitchen floor because I saw her standing in the road and felt the terrible nothing of passing through her. I pressed the phone against my ear and listened to her talk about the weather and her neighbor's new fence and the price of gas, and I let every syllable wash over me like proof that she was real, that she was solid, that she existed in the world of weight and consequence, where driving through a person meant something. 3 days after returning, I searched for Vellum Creek. Google, county records, USKI's maps, census archives, newspaper indexes, nothing. The town didn't exist. The paper had never been published. I searched missing persons along Route 460. Over 7 decades, a quiet accumulation. A salesman in 1957, a family of 4 in 1963, a truck driver in 1978, a college student in 1994, 2 hikers in 2003, a retired couple in 2011. All vanished during rainstorms. No vehicles, no bodies. They ceased to exist on the highway. I thought about the diner, the waitress and her static face, the salesman and his turquoise Bel Air, and a wife whose birthday he'd been counting toward for 7 decades of blinks. And I thought about the lure, the detail I keep returning to, the one that sits on my chest at 3 in the morning, is something I was too frightened to process at the time. When I drove past the figure wearing my face, it was walking in my direction, away from the diner, toward the edge of town, toward the road that goes uphill. It was already heading for the exit. The weeks that followed wore the shape of normalcy, the way a wireframe wears papier-mâché. I drove my routes, filed claims, slept in motels. I held to my routines with the desperate precision of a man gripping a railing on a listing ship. Every morning I made coffee in my blue mug, the one with the chipped handle I'd had since graduate school, and drank it standing at the kitchen counter, looking out the window at the parking lot. Every evening I came home, set my keys in the same spot on the counter, heated something from the freezer, ate at the table, washed the dish, placed it on the rack. The loop, the rhythm. As long as it held, I was still Joel Parrish. The first sign that something had followed me came on a Tuesday morning. 3 weeks after March 11th. Shaving, the daily ritual, foam and razor and mirror. A mark on my neck below my left ear. Faint, yellow-green, shaped like a fingerprint. One clear oval with whorls and ridges, as if someone had pressed a stained finger to my skin while I slept. Not raised, didn't hurt, beneath the surface like a watermark. I told myself I'd slept on my hand. It faded in 2 days. Then the rain, not spring rain. This came only at night, only when I was alone. Same instantaneous onset. Dry to deluge in a heartbeat. It lasted exactly as long as I was awake. The moment I slept, silence. I recorded it. Playback confirmed 3 hours of heavy rain, then an instantaneous cut. No taper, no fade, then nothing until my alarm. On those nights, no weather station in the county recorded precipitation. My neighbor called at 1 in the morning, said it wasn't raining. I watched water sheet down my window and told her she was right. The rain followed me into daytime, but only into isolation. My car between appointments. My office when it emptied. A gas station restroom. Wherever I was alone, it found me, tapping with patient rhythm on whatever surface was above me. Each time, it sounded less like weather and more like a signal, a knocking, irregular enough that my brain could never dismiss it, could never habituate, could never stop hearing it as intentional. My doctor found nothing. Clean MRI. She prescribed anxiety medication that blurred the boundary between sleeping and waking without stopping the rain, which was the worst possible outcome, because the one thing I needed was certainty about which world I was in when I heard the water. 6 weeks after March 11th, Tuesday, 11:30, something pulled me to the window, an itch at the base of my skull. The figure was standing across the street under a lamp in rain that existed only for us. Too far for details, but I knew the posture, the jacket, the leftward shift of weight, the way I stand when I'm waiting. I closed the blinds, sat in the dark, let myself understand. The lure hadn't stayed. It had walked the uphill road, reached pavement, entered the real world carrying my face like a key. It had followed me home with a patience that wasn't human. Because human patience has limits, and whatever this was had been under that town since before the salesman parked his Bel Air. Each sighting halved the distance. Across the street, then my parking lot. Between the dumpster and the fence, face tilted toward my window, rain beating on its jacket, in the amber glow of the security light. Then at the glass lobby door, illuminated by the buzzing fluorescent. Close enough now that I could see my own features reflected back at me, worn by something that had learned them from the inside out. It stood there for what must have been hours. I know because I watched from the top of the stairwell through the narrow window in the fire door, and it didn't shift its weight, didn't blink, didn't look away. It simply stood, and the rain fell on it, and it waited. Then footsteps in the stairwell, my cadence, my weight. Climbing to my floor, stopping outside my door. I stood on the other side and listened to the absence of retreating steps. The particular silence of something standing perfectly still on the other side of an inch of wood. Then, last night, I came home, turned the key, opened the door. A mug of coffee on my kitchen counter. Still warm, steam curling, my blue mug, chipped handle. Strong, slightly bitter. Rich in a way I'd tasted exactly once. Sitting in the exact spot where I set my keys every evening. As if something that knew my routines, that inhabited my patterns with the intimacy of long study, had been in my apartment, using my mug, brewing coffee from my beans, and had stepped just out of the frame, not out of the apartment, just out of the version I was allowed to see. I haven't slept since. It's 2 in the morning. I'm at my kitchen table. Outside, it's raining, genuinely, a real storm the weather service predicted, heavy and sudden, thunder in the valleys, gutters overflowing. It feels wrong, too warm, too rhythmic, too much like the rain that fell on Vellum Creek. I'm wondering if a ramp is forming, if streetlights are flickering on, if the waitress is reaching for the pot. I can hear footsteps in the hallway, slow, steady, patient, my cadence. The slight scuff of the left shoe I keep meaning to get resoled but never do. Because it's the kind of errand that requires a kind of attention to my own continued existence that I've been losing day by day. Like water evaporating from an uncovered glass. The deadbolt is locked. I've checked it 3 times. But there is warm coffee on my counter that I didn't make, in an apartment no one else has a key to. And the footsteps have stopped outside my door, and the silence that follows is the only silence I've ever heard that matches the one in Vellum Creek. Pressurized, immense. The silence of something vast holding its breath and listening for me, listening for it. The doorknob is turning. A 1/4 inch at a time. The mechanism clicks. The deadbolt holds. For a moment, one thin moment, I feel something like safety. And then I notice, because noticing is all I have left, the last faculty still functioning, that my hand is moving toward the lock, not to check it, not to brace it. My hand is reaching for the deadbolt the way you reach for something in a dream, without deciding to, without wanting to, as if the muscles are receiving instructions from somewhere beneath the floorboards of conscious thought. From the deep architecture of the self, where decisions are made long before the mind becomes aware of them. I'm watching my hand move, and I'm not stopping it. I think that's how it works. I think that's always how it worked. Not a monster that breaks down your door. Not a force that drags you screaming. Just a quiet pull, like gravity, like water, finding its level. And you watch yourself open the door because some part of you already decided, has been deciding. Slowly and silently, ever since you turned off your headlights in a town that exists only when it rains and sat in that perfect darkness. And let the thing underneath look at you through your open eyes and learn the weight of everything you are. The deadbolt clicks. The door opens. What's standing on the other side looks exactly like me. Same eyes. Same scar. Same exhaustion written into the lines around the mouth. Same jacket, soaking wet. Water dripping from the hem onto the hallway carpet in a slow metronomic rhythm. That sounds like a clock counting toward 0. It smells like rain and coffee and something older. Something mineral and lightless. Like water that has been underground for longer than anyone has been alive, to mark the passage of time above it. It doesn't speak. It doesn't reach for me. It stands on the threshold, the way I've been sitting at my table for 4 hours. Suspended between going and staying, between the gas and the brake, between the world I know and the world that knows me. It's waiting for me to hesitate. And here's the thing I need you to understand. The reason I've written every word of this, even though my hands are shaking and the thing wearing my face is close enough to touch and the rain is hitting the windows hard enough to make the glass sing. I can't tell which one of us came back from Vellum Creek on the night of March 11th. I can't tell if I'm the one who drove up the hill and didn't look in the rearview mirror, or if I'm the one who was already walking toward the exit when the car passed through me like fog. I can't tell if the coffee on my counter was left by an intruder or brewed by my own hands in a fugue I don't remember. I can't tell if the footsteps in the hallway came from outside my door or from inside my own body, from feet that are no longer certain they belong to anything real. The thing in the doorway tilts its head, just slightly, the way I tilt mine when I'm listening to something I can't quite hear. And the rain keeps falling, and I keep hesitating. And somewhere in the mountains, on a road that doesn't exist, except when the sky opens and the water comes down, a town is waking up. The streetlights are turning on, one by one, amber and gold. The diner is warming its coffee. The waitress is smoothing her uniform. The man is unfolding his newspaper to a date with no year, and there's an empty stool at the counter. It's been empty for a while now. They've been saving it. They knew I'd come back. Not because I chose to, but because I paused. Because I stopped the car when I should have kept driving. Because I turned off my headlights when they told me not to, because hesitation isn't something you do. It's something you become. The door is open, the rain is warm, and the thing with my face takes one step forward, and I take one step back, and we move together, perfectly synchronized, like two reflections in facing mirrors stretching into a hallway that goes on forever. And I realize that I can no longer tell which one of us is moving and which one is standing still. Somewhere, a bell jingles above a diner door, and the waitress says, without looking up, "Welcome back, Joel."